The early morning fog rolled through downtown Portland like a gray blanket, wrapping itself around the tall buildings and seeping into every alley and corner. Margaret Thompson, known to everyone as Maggie, sat on her usual bench in Pioneer Courthouse Square, her weathered hands carefully breaking apart a slice of stale bread she had received from the soup kitchen the night before. Around her feet, pigeons and sparrows gathered in anticipation, their soft cooing creating a gentle symphony that always brought her peace. At 68 years old, Maggie had been living on the streets for 3 years now. Her silver hair, though clean thanks to the weekly showers at the community center, hung in thin strands around her deeply lined face. Her clothes were layers of donated items, a faded purple jacket over a grey sweater, worn jeans with patches on the knees, and sneakers that had seen better days. Despite her circumstances, there was something dignified about the way she carried herself, a remnant of the life she once had. "Good morning, little ones," she whispered to the birds, her voice soft and warm. "I hope you slept better than I did. That wind last night was something fierce." Maggie had developed routines over the years, small rituals that gave structure to days that might otherwise blur into meaningless stretches of survival. Feeding the birds every morning was her favorite. It reminded her of happier times, of the bird feeder she used to maintain in her backyard when she still had a home, when her husband Robert was still alive. As the sun began to burn through the fog, Maggie carefully folded the empty bread wrapper and placed it in her canvas bag. She never littered. She might not have a home anymore, but she still had her principles. Standing up slowly, her knees protesting with familiar aches, she began her daily walk through the city. She would check on some of the other homeless individuals she had befriended, share whatever food or supplies she could spare, and maybe find a warm spot in the library to rest for a few hours. "Maggie!" a voice called out from across the square. She turned to see Dennis Walker, a 42-year-old former construction worker who had been living on the streets for 5 years after a workplace injury left him unable to work and drowning in medical debt. He hurried toward her, his sleeping bag rolled up under his arm. "Morning, Dennis," Maggie greeted him with a genuine smile. "How are you feeling today? Is that cough any better?" "A bit, thanks to that cough syrup you brought me," Dennis replied, his weathered face breaking into a grateful grin. "I don't know where you got it, but it helped me sleep through the night for the first time in a week." "I have my ways," Maggie said mysteriously. In truth, she had gone without her own pain medication for her arthritis to afford the cough medicine for Dennis. That was just who she was, always putting others before herself, even when she had nearly nothing to give. They walked together through the morning streets, sharing quiet conversation about the changing weather and the new regulations the city council was considering regarding homeless encampments. As they passed the Riverside Shopping Center, a large commercial complex with a multi-level parking garage, Maggie noticed an unusual amount of activity near the entrance. 2 police cars were parked at odd angles, their lights off, but their presence commanding attention. A security guard was gesturing animatedly to a police officer, pointing at something on the wall of the parking structure. Maggie and Dennis slowed their pace, curious but cautious. Street life had taught them both to be wary of police presence. "What do you think happened?" Dennis asked quietly. "I don't know, but let's not get too close," Maggie advised. "You know how they get when folks like us are around trouble." But fate had different plans. As they attempted to walk past at a distance, the security guard, a stocky man in his 30s with a red face and an aggressive demeanor, spotted them. "Hey, you two! Stop right there!" he shouted, pointing directly at Maggie and Dennis. They froze. One of the police officers, a tall woman with her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, walked toward them with measured steps. Her hand rested casually on her belt, near her radio. "Good morning," the officer said, her tone professional but firm. Her name tag read, "Officer Janet Rodriguez." We're investigating some vandalism that occurred here last night. Were either of you in this area between midnight and 6 a.m.? No, ma'am, Dennis answered quickly. I was sleeping under the Burnside Bridge, about a mile from here. Maggie was... I can speak for myself, Dennis, Maggie interjected gently but firmly. She looked directly at Officer Rodriguez with clear, honest eyes. I was at the overnight shelter on 3rd Avenue. I signed in at 11 p.m. and left at 7 this morning. I came straight here to the square to feed the birds, as I do every morning. The security guard pushed forward, his chest puffed out with self-importance. His name tag identified him as Kyle Brennan. That's convenient, real convenient. You homeless people always have alibis for each other. Excuse me? Maggie's voice remained calm, but there was a note of steel in it. I just told you where I was. The shelter keeps records. You can verify it easily. Kyle, let me handle this, Officer Rodriguez said, shooting the security guard a warning look before turning back to Maggie. Ma'am, someone spray-painted graffiti all over the wall of this parking garage last night. Obscene language, threats toward the property owner. It's going to cost thousands to clean and repair. We found this near the scene. She held up a clear evidence bag containing a worn canvas bag, very similar to the one Maggie carried. Inside, it was spray paint cans and what looked like a ragged purple scarf. Maggie's eyes widened. That's not mine. My bag looks similar, but... It has initials on it, Kyle interrupted triumphantly. M.T. Margaret Thompson. Don't try to deny it. Many people have those initials, Maggie protested, her heart beginning to race. And I've never owned a purple scarf. I have a purple jacket, but... Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come down to the station to answer some questions, Officer Rodriguez said, her tone still professional, but now tinged with suspicion. This is ridiculous, Dennis spoke up, his voice rising. Maggie wouldn't do something like this. She's the kindest person I know. She helps everyone, never causes any trouble. Sir, please step back, another officer intervened, moving between Dennis and Officer Rodriguez. Maggie's mind raced. She had been in Portland long enough to know how this worked. Homeless people were easy targets, easy to blame, easy to sweep under the rug. No one would believe her word against a security guard and physical evidence, no matter how circumstantial. I'll cooperate fully, Maggie said with as much dignity as she could muster. I have nothing to hide. I didn't do this, and I'm confident the truth will come out. We'll see about that, Kyle muttered under his breath, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. As Officer Rodriguez guided Maggie toward the patrol car, Dennis called out, I'll find you, Maggie. I'll get help. Maggie turned and gave him a small, reassuring smile, though inside she felt anything but reassured. As she sat in the back of the police car, the familiar sights of her city passing by the window, she couldn't help but think about how quickly life could change, how fragile one's place in the world really was. At the police station, Maggie was processed with mechanical efficiency. Her photograph was taken, her fingerprints recorded, her few possessions inventoried and placed in a plastic bag. She was placed in an interview room, a small windowless space with concrete walls painted a depressing beige color, a metal table bolted to the floor, and 3 uncomfortable chairs. Detective Christopher Hayes entered 20 minutes later. He was a man in his late 40s, with graying hair at his temples and tired eyes that suggested he had seen far too much of humanity's worst behavior. He carried a manila folder and a cup of coffee that he set down on the table before sitting across from Maggie. Mrs. Thompson, he began, opening the folder. I'm Detective Hayes. I need to ask you some questions about last night. It's Ms. Thompson now, Maggie corrected quietly. My husband passed away 4 years ago, and I'm happy to answer any questions, Detective. I didn't vandalize that parking garage. The evidence suggests otherwise, Detective Hayes said, pulling out photographs of the vandalized wall. The graffiti was crude and angry, full of curse words and threats about rich people and corrupt systems. The bag found at the scene has your initials. You were in the area this morning. I'm in that area every morning, Maggie interrupted. I feed the birds in the square. Anyone who spends time downtown knows that. And I already told Officer Rodriguez that I was at the 3rd Avenue shelter last night. Call them. They'll confirm it. Detective Hayes made a note. We will verify that. But shelters have been known to make mistakes with their logs. People slip out without signing out all the time. I didn't slip out, Maggie insisted, her frustration beginning to show. I slept there the entire night. I have witnesses. Other women who were in the same room with me. Other homeless women, Detective Hayes said. And though his tone wasn't overtly dismissive, Maggie could hear the implicit doubt in his words. Yes, other homeless women, Maggie repeated, her voice hardening. Does their status make them liars automatically? Does my status make me a vandal automatically? Detective Hayes leaned back in his chair, studying her. Ms. Thompson, I'm just trying to get to the truth here. The property owner is pressing charges. He wants whoever did this held accountable. If you cooperate, if you explain why you did it, maybe you were angry, maybe you've been mistreated, the district attorney might be willing to work out a deal. A deal for something I didn't do? Maggie shook her head firmly. No, Detective, I won't confess to a crime I didn't commit just to make your job easier. I want a lawyer. That's your right, Detective Hayes acknowledged, closing his folder. A public defender will be assigned to you. In the meantime, you'll be held until your arraignment. Held? Maggie's voice rose slightly. You're arresting me? Based on the evidence and the property owner's insistence on pressing charges, yes, you'll be arraigned tomorrow morning. As Detective Hayes stood to leave, Maggie felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. She had survived 3 years on the streets by being invisible, by not causing trouble, by simply trying to get through each day with whatever dignity she could maintain. Now, through no fault of her own, she was caught in the justice system's machinery, and she knew from experience how mercilessly it could grind. That night, Maggie lay on a thin mattress in a holding cell, surrounded by the sounds of other people's misery, crying, coughing, angry shouting from somewhere down the corridor. She thought about Robert, about the life they had built together, about how proud he would be that she was standing up for herself even now. She thought about the birds who would wait for her tomorrow morning in the square, confused by her absence. And she thought about Marcus Chen, the young man whose life she had saved 5 years ago on a rainy highway outside the city. She wondered what had become of him, if he ever thought about the stranger who had stopped to help him when he lay bleeding on the pavement. She had never told anyone that story, had never sought recognition or gratitude. It had simply been the right thing to do. As she finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, Maggie couldn't possibly know that Marcus had never forgotten her, that he had spent years trying to find the woman who saved his life, and that the wheels of fate were already turning in ways that would bring them together again at the moment she needed help most. The morning sun streaming through the barred window of the holding cell woke Maggie earlier than she would have liked. Her body ached from the uncomfortable mattress, and her mouth was dry. A guard brought her a tray with watery oatmeal, an apple that had seen better days, and lukewarm coffee. She ate mechanically, knowing she needed to maintain her strength for whatever lay ahead. At 9 a.m., she was escorted to a small meeting room where her court-appointed attorney was waiting. Nathan Pierce was a young man, probably not yet 30, with sandy brown hair and an earnest face that still held traces of idealism despite working in the overwhelmed public defender's office. His suit was off the rack but clean, his briefcase worn at the corners. "Miss Thompson, I'm Nathan Pierce," he introduced himself, extending his hand. Maggie shook it, noting his firm grip and the sincere concern in his hazel eyes. "I've been assigned to represent you. I've reviewed your case file, and I have to be honest, the evidence is concerning, but your record is spotless. Not even a parking ticket in your entire life." "That's because I don't own a car anymore," Maggie said with a dry humor that made Nathan smile despite the gravity of the situation. "Tell me your side of the story," Nathan requested, pulling out a yellow legal pad. "Everything. Don't leave anything out." Maggie took a deep breath and began. She told him about her routine, about feeding the birds, about her night at the shelter. She gave him the names of the shelter staff and the other women who had been there. She described her canvas bag and how it differed from the one found at the scene. "The bag they found is newer than mine," she explained. "Mine has a tear in the left corner that I sewed up with red thread, and I've never owned a purple scarf. Purple makes my skin look sallow. My late husband always joked about it." Nathan took careful notes. "That's good. These details matter. The prosecution is being handled by Assistant District Attorney Victoria Hartwell. She's got a reputation for being tough, especially on property crimes. The owner of the parking garage, Gerald Cunningham, is apparently a major donor to the district attorney's re-election campaign. So I'm being made an example of," Maggie said quietly. It wasn't a question. "I won't let that happen without a fight," Nathan promised. "Now tell me about your background. The judge will want to know who you are beyond your current circumstances." This was harder for Maggie. Talking about her past meant confronting all the loss, all the dreams that had crumbled, but she forced herself to speak. "I was a registered nurse for 37 years, she began, her voice steady but soft. "I worked at Providence Portland Medical Center in the cardiac care unit. My husband, Robert Thompson, was a high school history teacher. We had a good life, not wealthy but comfortable. We had a small house in the Montevilla neighborhood, a garden I was very proud of, and enough savings for a modest retirement." "What happened?" Nathan asked gently. "Robert was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 8 years ago," Maggie continued, her eyes fixed on her hands folded on the table. "The prognosis was grim, but we refused to give up. We tried every treatment available: chemotherapy, radiation, experimental trials. Our insurance covered some of it, but there were so many out-of-pocket expenses, medications, travel to specialists, time off work to care for him." She paused, swallowing hard against the lump forming in her throat. "He fought for 2 years, 2 incredibly hard years, and when he finally passed, I was left with over $200,000 in medical debt. Our savings were gone. I had to take out a second mortgage on our house just to pay for his funeral and the most pressing bills." Nathan's expression was pained, but he continued writing. "What happened to the house? I tried to keep working, but I was 65 by then, exhausted emotionally and physically. I made some bad decisions, trusted the wrong financial advisor who promised he could help me consolidate my debt. Instead, he disappeared with what little I had left. I couldn't make the mortgage payments. The bank foreclosed. I lost everything." "You have no family?" Nathan asked. "Robert and I never had children. We tried for years, but it wasn't meant to be. We had each other, and that was enough. My parents passed away years ago. I have a sister, Patricia Holbrook, in Seattle, but we haven't spoken in over 15 years. We had a falling out over our parents' estate. Silly, really, looking back. Pride and stubbornness on both sides. Would she be willing to help now?" Maggie shook her head. "I don't even know if she knows about my situation. And I'm too proud to ask. Some habits die hard, even when you're sleeping on the streets." Nathan closed his notepad and looked directly at Maggie. "Miss Thompson, Maggie, I want you to understand something. Your story is heartbreaking, and it's far too common. You did everything right, worked hard your whole life, and the system failed you. But in that courtroom, none of that will matter to the prosecution. They'll see a homeless woman with means, motive, and opportunity. We need to prove reasonable doubt." "How do we do that?" Maggie asked. "First, we verify your alibi with the shelter. Second, we examine the bag more closely. Your detail about the red stitching could be crucial. Third, We question why someone would conveniently leave evidence with initials at the scene. It's almost too perfect, which makes me suspicious. And fourth, we need character witnesses, people who can testify to who you really are. I know people on the streets, Maggie offered. Dennis Walker, Amanda Foster, Carlos Mendoza, they're all good people who would speak for me. Nathan nodded, but looked uncertain. They'll help, but I need someone with more credibility in the court's eyes. I'm sorry to put it so bluntly, but that's the reality. Do you know anyone with a stable address, a job, any kind of social standing who could vouch for your character? Maggie thought hard. Most of her old colleagues had lost touch with her after she became homeless. People were uncomfortable with her situation, didn't know what to say, gradually stopped reaching out. She couldn't blame them. There's Dr. Helen Patterson, Maggie finally said. She was my supervisor at the hospital. We were close once. I haven't spoken to her in 2 years, but she knew me when I was at my best. She might remember. I'll track her down, Nathan promised, adding the name to his notes. Your arraignment is this afternoon at 2 p.m. The judge will set bail, but given your circumstances, you likely won't be able to pay it. We'll request OR release, released on your own recognizance, based on your lack of criminal history. The arraignment was held in a courtroom that smelled of old wood and accumulated tension. Judge Harold Morrison presided, a stern-looking man in his 60s with steel-gray hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. Maggie stood beside Nathan at the defendant's table, acutely aware of her wrinkled clothing and disheveled appearance, next to the crisp professionalism of the court staff. Assistant District Attorney Victoria Hartwell was exactly as Nathan had described. A woman in her early 40s with short dark hair, an expensive navy suit, and the bearing of someone who never doubted her own righteousness. She argued forcefully for a high bail, painting Maggie as a flight risk, despite her having nowhere to flee to. Your Honor, the defendant destroyed thousands of dollars in property, Victoria stated firmly. The messages spray-painted show clear hostility toward productive members of society. We believe Ms. Thompson represents a continued threat to property and potentially to persons. That's absurd, Nathan countered. Ms. Thompson has no criminal record. She's been a productive member of this community her entire life. She worked as a nurse for nearly 4 decades, saving lives and caring for the sick. Her current circumstances are the result of medical debt and economic hardship, not criminality. She has strong ties to Portland and absolutely no reason or means to flee. We request OR release. Judge Morrison studied the papers before him, then looked at Maggie over his glasses. Ms. Thompson, do you understand the charges against you? Yes, Your Honor, Maggie replied clearly, and I want to state for the record that I did not commit this crime. That will be determined at trial, the judge said. Bail is set at $15,000. If you cannot post bail, you will remain in custody until trial. Your Honor, please, Nathan began, but Judge Morrison raised his hand. My decision is final, Counselor. Next case. As Maggie was led away, she caught Nathan's eye. He looked frustrated but determined. He mouthed, "I'll fix this." But Maggie had lived long enough to know that some things couldn't be fixed, only endured. Back in the holding area, Maggie was processed for transfer to the Multnomah County Detention Center, where she would be held until trial. As she changed into an orange jumpsuit that hung loosely on her thin frame, she thought about the bitter irony of her situation. She had spent years caring for people in hospitals, and now she was being warehoused in a jail. The detention center was a world unto itself. Harsh lights, constant noise, the smell of industrial cleaner, and human desperation. Maggie was assigned to a cell with 3 other women. Her cellmates were a study in contrasts. Rachel Cooper, a 25-year-old with track marks on her arms and hollow eyes, arrested for possession. Jennifer Wu, a 40-year-old bookkeeper accused of embezzlement from her employer, and Diamond Jones, a 19-year-old sex worker with a defiant attitude and a surprisingly kind heart. "What they get you for, Grandma?" Diamond asked that first night, not unkindly. "Vandalism," Maggie answered, "which I didn't do." "Nobody in here did nothing," Jennifer said sarcastically from her bunk. "We're all innocent." "I believe you," Diamond said, looking at Maggie with sharp, assessing eyes. "You don't got the look." "What look?" Maggie asked. "The guilty look, the angry look. You just look sad and tired." Over the following days, as Nathan worked on her defense, Maggie settled into the rhythm of detention center life. She discovered that her nursing skills were valuable even there. She helped Rachel through the worst of her withdrawal symptoms, fashioned a compress for Jennifer's persistent headaches, and taught Diamond some basic first aid techniques. "Why you being so nice?" Rachel asked one night, her voice thick with suspicion and wonder. "What do you want?" "Nothing," Maggie replied honestly. "I'm just trying to help. It's who I am." Nathan visited regularly with updates. He had contacted the shelter, and the staff confirmed Maggie had been there all night. The log showed her signing in and out at the times she had stated. He had also examined the evidence bag more closely and confirmed that it lacked the red stitching Maggie had described on her own bag, which she still had in her possession in the property room. "This is good," Nathan told her excitedly during one visit. "We're building reasonable doubt. I also spoke with Dr. Helen Patterson. She was shocked to hear about your situation and eager to help. She'll testify as a character witness." "That's very kind of her," Maggie said, feeling a warm flutter of hope in her chest. But Nathan's expression grew more serious. "There's something else. The prosecution is pushing for a quick trial. Ada Hartwell wants this case heard next week. She's calling it a clear-cut case and wants to make an example. I've asked for more time to prepare, but Judge Morrison is only giving us 5 more days." "Can we be ready?" Maggie asked. "We have to be," Nathan replied grimly. As Nathan left, Maggie returned to her cell, feeling the weight of her situation pressing down on her shoulders. That night, unable to sleep, she thought about Marcus Chen again. It had been 5 years since that rainy afternoon when she had come upon the motorcycle accident on Highway 26. She'd been driving home from a rare visit with an old friend, taking the scenic route through the hills. The rain was coming down hard, reducing visibility to almost nothing. When she rounded a curve, she saw the motorcycle lying on its side in the middle of the road, and a young man sprawled on the wet pavement, his helmet cracked, blood mixing with rainwater. Maggie had immediately pulled over and run to him, her nursing instincts taking over. The young man was conscious but dazed, bleeding from a head wound and a nasty gash on his leg. His dark eyes were wide with fear and pain. "Don't move," Maggie had commanded, pulling off her jacket to press against his bleeding leg. "I'm a nurse. Help is coming. What's your name?" "Marcus," he had gasped. "Marcus Chen, my bike. I hit a wet patch. Your bike doesn't matter right now. You matter," Maggie had said firmly, already on her phone calling 911. She had stayed with him, keeping pressure on his wounds, talking to him to keep him conscious, reassuring him that he would be okay. The ambulance had arrived within 15 minutes, though it felt like hours. As the paramedics took over, Marcus had grabbed Maggie's hand with surprising strength. "Thank you," he had said, his voice intense despite his pain. "You saved my life. I need to know your name. I need to be able to thank you properly." "Just pay it forward," Maggie had told him with a gentle smile. "Help someone else when they need it. That's all the thanks I need." In the chaos of the ambulance loading and departure, Maggie had slipped away. She never followed up, never checked on his recovery, never sought recognition. It was simply what she did, what she had always done. Help was given freely, without expectation of return. Now lying in a jail cell, accused of a crime she didn't commit, Maggie wondered if Marcus had kept his life together, if he had recovered fully, if he even remembered that rainy afternoon. She wondered if he had indeed paid it forward, if her small act had rippled outward into the world in positive ways. She couldn't know that Marcus had never stopped looking for her, that he had searched hospital records, put out inquiries with police, even hired a private investigator. She couldn't know that her description of herself, just an old nurse who did what anyone would do, had been too vague to track down among the thousands of nurses in the Portland area, and she certainly couldn't know that Marcus was now the vice president of Rolling Thunder MC, a motorcycle club that had reformed itself from its rough past into a community service organization. The club had made it their mission to help veterans, the homeless and vulnerable populations, inspired directly by Marcus's experience of being helped when he was at his most vulnerable. But fate has a way of weaving threads together in unexpected patterns, and the loom was already at work. The morning of the trial arrived grey and drizzly, typical Portland weather that seemed to match Maggie's somber mood. She was transported to the Multnomah County Courthouse in a van with other defendants, all of them shackled together like some grim chain gang. Nathan had arranged for her to have clean clothes, a simple grey dress and cardigan that Dr. Helen Patterson had sent over, along with a note that said simply, "Hold your head high. I believe in you." The courtroom was more imposing than it had been during the arraignment. Judge Morrison sat at his elevated bench, looking down at the proceedings with an air of tired authority. The jury box held 12 people whose lives had been disrupted to pass judgment on hers. 6 women and 6 men of various ages and backgrounds, all looking either bored or curious. Ada Victoria Hartwell sat at the prosecution table with her assistant, a young man named Bradley Foster, who was organizing documents with precise efficiency. Victoria looked confident, almost eager, like a predator that had spotted easy prey. Nathan sat beside Maggie at the defense table, his legal pad covered in notes, his jaw set with determination. Before the proceedings began, he leaned over and whispered, "Remember, stay calm no matter what they say. Show them who you really are. Dignified, honest, kind. That's our best weapon." Maggie nodded, folding her hands in her lap to stop them from trembling. Judge Morrison banged his gavel. "Court is now in session. The State of Oregon versus Margaret Thompson. Will counsel present their opening statements?" Victoria Hartwell rose smoothly, buttoning her suit jacket as she approached the jury with measured steps. Her voice was clear and authoritative. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a case about accountability. The defendant, Margaret Thompson, willfully and maliciously destroyed property worth thousands of dollars. In the early morning hours of October 15th, she spray-painted obscene graffiti across the wall of the Riverside Shopping Center parking garage. The messages were filled with rage against property owners, against people she deemed more fortunate than herself. She left behind evidence, a bag with her initials containing the tools of her crime. This is not a complex case. The evidence is clear. The defendant's motive is clear. By the end of this trial, I'm confident you will have no choice but to find her guilty." Victoria returned to her seat with the satisfaction of someone who believed they had already won. Nathan stood, and Maggie noticed his hands were steady, even though she knew he was nervous. He had told her this was one of his first jury trials. But when he spoke, his voice carried conviction. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is indeed about accountability. The accountability we all have to seek truth rather than convenience. Yes, someone vandalized that parking garage. Yes, someone should be held responsible. But that someone is not Margaret Thompson. The prosecution will show you a bag with initials. They will not show you proof that those initials belong to my client. They will not explain why someone who has survived 3 years on the streets without a single incident would suddenly commit a senseless act of vandalism. They will not address the fact that Ms. Thompson has an airtight alibi. She was at a shelter a mile away, witnessed by staff and other residents. What they will do is ask you to make assumptions based on her current circumstances. I ask you to listen carefully to all the evidence, to remember that in this country we are all innocent until proven guilty, and to render a verdict based on facts, not prejudice. As Nathan sat down, Maggie felt a surge of gratitude for this young lawyer who barely knew her but was fighting so hard on her behalf. The prosecution's case began with Gerald Cunningham, the owner of the parking garage. He was a portly man in his late 50s, wearing an expensive suit that strained slightly across his midsection. His face was red with indignation as Victoria led him through his testimony. "Mr. Cunningham, please describe what you discovered on the morning of October 15th, Victoria prompted. "I arrived at my property at 7:30 a.m. to inspect the facilities, as I do every Monday," Gerald began, his voice booming across the courtroom. "What I found was absolutely appalling. The entire west wall of the parking structure was covered in graffiti, vulgar language, threats against me personally, accusations about greed and corruption. It was horrifying. I've worked my entire life to build my business, and this is what I get, attacked by vandals." "How much will it cost to repair the damage?" Victoria asked. "The estimate is $45,000. We have to sandblast the concrete, repaint, possibly replace sections that were damaged by the chemicals in the spray paint. It's an enormous financial burden." On cross-examination, Nathan approached carefully. "Mr. Cunningham, you said the graffiti included accusations of greed. Have you recently raised the parking rates at your facility?" "That's standard business practice," Gerald replied defensively. "Costs go up, prices go up. That's how economics works." "By what percentage did you raise them?" Nathan pressed. "I don't see how that's relevant." "Please answer the question," Judge Morrison interjected. 40%, Gerald admitted grudgingly. "And did you receive complaints about this increase?" Nathan continued. "Some people complained, yes, but that doesn't give anyone the right to vandalize my property." "No one is saying it does," Nathan agreed. "But it does suggest that there might be other people who actually use your parking garage and were directly affected by your price increase, who might have had a stronger motive than my client, who doesn't own a car and has never parked there." Victoria objected. "Speculation, Your Honor." "Sustained," Judge Morrison ruled. "Move on, Mr. Pierce." The security guard, Kyle Brennan, testified next. He described finding the bag near the vandalized wall, noting the spray paint cans inside and the initials MT embroidered on the side. "And where exactly did you find this bag?" Nathan asked during cross-examination. "It was lying next to the wall, partially hidden behind a trash can," Kyle answered. "Isn't it strange that a vandal would go to the trouble of hiding their escape route but leave their evidence lying around with their initials on it?" Nathan asked. "Maybe they panicked," Kyle suggested with a shrug. "Or maybe someone wanted it to be found," Nathan countered. "Did you check the surveillance cameras in the parking garage?" Kyle shifted uncomfortably. "The cameras in that section weren't working. They've been broken for a few weeks." "How convenient," Nathan said quietly. No further questions. Officer Janet Rodriguez testified about finding Maggie near the scene and the subsequent investigation. She was professional and fair in her testimony, admitting under Nathan's questioning that Maggie had been cooperative and that the shelter had confirmed her presence there during the time of the vandalism. "But shelter logs can be inaccurate," Victoria pointed out on redirect. "People sign in and then leave through back doors or windows." "That's possible," Officer Rodriguez agreed reluctantly. The next witness hit Maggie hard. It was Amanda Foster, one of her friends from the streets. Amanda was a 53-year-old woman who had been homeless for 7 years after a mental health crisis destroyed her career as a paralegal. She looked nervous and uncomfortable in her borrowed dress as she took the stand. Victoria's questioning was aggressive. Ms. Foster, you know the defendant, correct? Yes, Maggie and I are friends, Amanda confirmed, her voice shaking slightly. Have you ever heard her express anger toward property owners or wealthy individuals? Amanda hesitated, clearly torn. Well, sometimes we all vent. Life on the streets is hard, and sometimes people who have homes and money treat us like we're invisible or worse. But Maggie never... Just answer yes or no, Victoria interrupted. Have you heard her express such anger? Yes, but... Thank you, no further questions. Nathan tried to repair the damage on cross-examination. Ms. Foster, you started to say something before you were cut off. Please finish your thought. Amanda looked relieved. I was trying to say that while Maggie sometimes expresses frustration with how homeless people are treated, and who wouldn't, she's never been violent or destructive. She's the opposite. She helps people. She's helped me more times than I can count, sharing food, checking on me when I'm sick, just being kind. She would never do something like this. Thank you, Nathan said warmly. The prosecution rested its case late that afternoon. As the court adjourned for the day, Maggie felt exhausted and demoralized. The way Victoria had twisted Amanda's words, the way Gerald Cunningham had glared at her like she was something he had scraped off his shoe, it all reinforced the harsh reality that in this courtroom, she was guilty until proven innocent, despite what the law claimed. That evening, back in her cell, Diamond tried to cheer her up. Don't let them get to you. That lawyer of yours knows what he's doing. I've seen plenty of court proceedings from the defendant's table, and he's good. I hope you're right, Maggie said quietly. The next morning, the defense began presenting its case. Nathan called Dr. Helen Patterson first. She was a distinguished woman in her mid-60s with kind eyes and an air of competence that filled the courtroom. She spoke warmly about Maggie's career as a nurse. Margaret Thompson was one of the finest nurses I ever had the privilege of working with. Dr. Patterson testified. She was skilled, compassionate, dedicated. She treated every patient with dignity, whether they were a CEO or a person without insurance. She saved countless lives over her career. The idea that she would wantonly destroy property is absolutely antithetical to everything I know about her character. Victoria's cross-examination was pointed. Dr. Patterson, when was the last time you actually spoke with the defendant? About 2 years ago, Dr. Patterson admitted. 2 years. A lot can change in 2 years, can't it? Especially when someone loses everything and ends up on the streets. People can become bitter, angry, even desperate enough to act out. Not Maggie, Dr. Patterson insisted firmly. Some qualities are core to who a person is. Integrity is core to Margaret Thompson. Nathan also called Jennifer Warner, the night manager at the 3rd Avenue shelter, who testified that Maggie had indeed been there the entire night, that she had checked on her personally during the night rounds at 2 a.m., and that Maggie had been asleep in her assigned bed. Is there any way she could have left without you knowing? Victoria asked. The exits are alarmed, Jennifer explained. If someone opens a door after 10 p.m., it triggers an alarm at the front desk. No alarms were triggered that night. Dennis Walker testified next, speaking passionately about Maggie's character and her kindness to everyone in their homeless community. But Victoria was ruthless in her cross-examination, highlighting his own record of minor arrests for trespassing and public intoxication, undermining his credibility in the jury's eyes. The most powerful moment came when Nathan called Maggie herself to the stand. She was sworn in and took her seat, looking out at the sea of faces in the courtroom with a mixture of fear and determination. Nathan led her through her testimony gently. Her career, her marriage, her husband's illness, the financial devastation that followed, her descent into homelessness. Maggie spoke clearly and honestly, her voice breaking only once when she talked about the day she was evicted from her home. Ms. Thompson, Did you vandalize the Riverside Shopping Center parking garage? Nathan asked directly. No, I did not, Maggie answered firmly, looking at each juror. I have never vandalized anything in my life. I was at the shelter that night, asleep. I don't even own spray paint, and I have no reason to target Mr. Cunningham. I've never met him before this trial, and his parking garage is not part of my daily life at all. Why do you think you were accused? Nathan asked. Objection. Calls for speculation, Victoria interjected. I'll rephrase, Nathan said. Ms. Thompson, do you have any enemies? Anyone who might want to harm you? Maggie thought for a moment. Not that I know of. I try to live peacefully. The only thing I can think of is that I'm an easy target. Homeless people are easy to blame because no one wants to believe us or defend us. Victoria's cross-examination was brutal. She attacked every aspect of Maggie's story, questioned her memory, highlighted her lack of resources. Ms. Thompson, you admit you've expressed frustration with wealthy property owners? Victoria asked sharply. I've expressed frustration with systems that allow people who work hard their entire lives to end up on the streets. Yes, Maggie replied carefully. Sounds like motive to me, Victoria said triumphantly. No further questions. As Maggie stepped down from the witness stand, she felt like she had been in a battle. Nathan gave her an encouraging nod, but she could see the worry in his eyes. The final witness was an expert Nathan had found, a forensic analyst named Dr. Thomas Brooks, who examined the bag found at the scene and compared it to Maggie's actual bag. He testified that the two bags, while similar, were not identical. The evidence bag was newer, the stitching was different, and it showed signs of being deliberately placed rather than accidentally dropped. In your professional opinion, does this evidence point conclusively to the defendant? Nathan asked. No, it does not, Dr. Brooks stated clearly. In fact, the evidence suggests possible evidence planting, leaving an item that would point to a specific person while that person has an alibi elsewhere. Victoria objected strenuously, and Judge Morrison instructed the jury to disregard speculation about evidence planting. But the seed had been planted. As the defense rested, Maggie felt a fragile hope. Maybe, just maybe, the truth would prevail. But she couldn't shake the feeling that in a system that saw her as disposable, truth might not be enough. While the trial proceeded inside the courthouse, events were unfolding outside that would change everything. 3 days earlier, as the prosecution was presenting its case, a seemingly unrelated conversation was happening 40 miles away in a garage in Gresham, Oregon. Marcus Chen stood in the center of Rolling Thunder MC's clubhouse, a converted warehouse that served as their headquarters. Around him, 24 members of the motorcycle club gathered for their weekly meeting. The walls were covered with photos from their charity events, toy drives for children's hospitals, food distributions for the homeless, escort rides for military funerals. This was no outlaw gang. Rolling Thunder had transformed itself into a force for good in the community. Marcus, now 32 years old, bore the scars of his accident 5 years ago, a thin line across his left temple where his helmet had cracked, and a permanent slight limp from his leg injury. But he was alive, thriving even, running a successful motorcycle repair shop and serving as vice president of the club that had become his second family. All right, let's talk about next month's Veterans Benefit Ride, Marcus began, consulting his notes. We need to finalize the route and... The clubhouse door burst open, and Tommy Richardson rushed in, his face flushed with urgency. Tommy was the club's youngest member at 24, an energetic former Marine with a tablet always in hand, serving as their unofficial social media coordinator. Marcus, you need to see this, Tommy said breathlessly, holding up his tablet. Can it wait? We're in the middle of a meeting, Marcus replied, though Tommy's obvious distress made him concerned. No, it can't. It's about the woman who saved your life. Every eye in the room turned to Marcus. His search for the mysterious nurse who had saved him on the highway had become something of a legend in the club. He had told the story dozens of times, how she had appeared out of nowhere in the rain, how she had kept him alive and conscious, how she had refused to give her full name or accept any recognition. Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides, his limp more pronounced in his haste. Tommy pulled up a news article on the tablet. The headline read, "Homeless woman on trial for parking garage vandalism." But it was the photograph that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. Despite the years, despite the grey hair and weathered face, he recognized her instantly, those same kind eyes, that same gentle but determined expression. "That's her," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's the woman. Margaret Thompson." "You're sure?" asked Jacob Morrison, the club's president, a 55-year-old former Army Ranger with a salt and pepper beard and a no-nonsense demeanor. "I'm absolutely sure," Marcus confirmed, his hands shaking slightly as he held the tablet. "I'd recognize her anywhere. She saved my life, and I've been looking for her for 5 years. And she's homeless, on trial?" Tommy swiped to another article. "It gets worse. She's being accused of vandalism, graffiti on some rich guy's parking garage. The trial's happening right now at the Multnomah County Courthouse. According to this, she's got an alibi, but the prosecutor is pushing hard for a conviction." Marcus felt a surge of emotions, gratitude, anger, desperation. "When is the trial?" "Closing arguments are scheduled for tomorrow morning," Tommy read from the article. "Then we ride tomorrow," Marcus declared, his voice taking on a commanding tone. "We show up for her the way she showed up for me." Jacob stepped forward. "Marcus, I understand how you feel, but we need to think this through. We can't just storm a courthouse. We've worked too hard to build our reputation, to distance ourselves from the old outlaw image. We do charity work. We follow the law." "I'm not talking about breaking any laws," Marcus insisted. "I'm talking about showing support, about being character witnesses, about making sure that courtroom knows who Margaret Thompson really is. Not some vagrant vandal, but a hero who saves lives and asks for nothing in return." "He's right," said Rachel Novak, the club's treasurer and one of only 3 female members. She was a 40-year-old former paramedic who had joined the club after they had helped her brother, a veteran struggling with PTSD. "If what Marcus says is true, and I believe him, then this woman doesn't deserve what's happening to her. We should help. All in favor of riding to the courthouse tomorrow to support Margaret Thompson?" Jacob called for a vote. Every hand in the room went up. "Then it's settled," Jacob declared. "We ride at dawn. Full dress, vests, patches, the whole 9 yards. We make it clear we're there in support, not to intimidate. We're respectful, quiet, until we're needed. But we make our presence known." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the woman who had saved his life, Margaret Thompson. Even her name felt right, solid, traditional, trustworthy. The fact that she had fallen on such hard times filled him with anger at a system that could let someone like her slip through the cracks. But more than anger, he felt determination. She had given him a second chance at life. Now it was his turn to give her one. Early the next morning, 28 motorcycles rumbled to life in the parking lot of the Rolling Thunder Clubhouse. The sound was thunderous, a deep mechanical growl that vibrated through the ground. Marcus straddled his rebuilt Harley-Davidson, the same bike he had been riding the day of his accident. He had kept it, repaired it himself, turned it into a reminder of both his mortality and his gratitude. The riders wore their leather vests emblazoned with the Rolling Thunder patch, a lightning bolt striking through storm clouds with an American flag in the background. But they also wore their respect. Clean jeans, polished boots, no weapons, no aggressive posturing. This wasn't about intimidation, this was about solidarity. As they rode through the early morning streets of Portland, people stopped to watch. The sight of nearly 30 motorcycles moving in formation was impressive, even beautiful in its coordination. They rode in a tight pack, disciplined and purposeful, heading toward downtown. Marcus led the formation, with Jacob beside him. Behind them rode Rachel, Tommy, and 24 others, mechanics, teachers, veterans, small business owners. They were fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, united by their love of motorcycles and their commitment to helping others. "You ready for this?" Jacob shouted over the engine noise as they approached the courthouse. "I've been ready for 5 years," Marcus shouted back. They arrived at the Multnomah County Courthouse just as closing arguments were about to begin. The motorcycles pulled into the parking area in perfect synchronization, engines cutting off one by one until silence fell. The sudden quiet was almost as impressive as the noise had been. Court security immediately tensed, hands moving toward radios. But Marcus approached with his hands visible, his demeanor calm and respectful. "Good morning, officers," he greeted the security team. "We're here to attend a trial. Margaret Thompson. We have information relevant to her character, and we'd like to offer our support." The head of security, a burly man named Officer Frank Chen, no relation to Marcus, eyed the group warily. "That's a lot of bikers for one trial." "She's important to a lot of people," Marcus replied simply. "We'll follow all courthouse rules. We're not here to cause any trouble." Officer Chen studied Marcus for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, but you go through security one at a time, and any disruption means you're all out. Clear?" "Crystal clear," Marcus agreed. Inside the courthouse, Nathan Pierce was preparing for closing arguments, unaware of what was unfolding outside. Maggie sat beside him at the defense table, her hands folded, her face composed, despite the fear churning in her stomach. The jury had filed in, looking tired and ready for this to be over. Judge Morrison took his seat. "Are both sides ready for closing arguments?" "Yes, Your Honor," Victoria Hartwell said confidently. "Yes, Your Honor," Nathan echoed, though his voice held less certainty. Just as Victoria was standing to begin, the courtroom doors opened. Marcus Chen walked in first, followed by Rachel Novak, then Jacob Morrison, then Tommy Richardson. One by one, 28 members of Rolling Thunder MC filed into the courtroom, filling the public gallery rows with quiet dignity. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Jurors' eyes widened, Judge Morrison's eyebrows rose. Victoria Hartwell's confident expression faltered, and Maggie turned in her seat, confusion written across her face as she took in the unexpected crowd. Marcus caught her eye and gave her a small, warm smile. Recognition didn't come immediately. 5 years and drastically different circumstances made it difficult. But something in his face, something in his eyes, triggered a memory. "Your Honor," Victoria objected, standing quickly, "this is clearly an attempt at intimidation. I request that these individuals be removed from the courtroom." "On what grounds?" Judge Morrison asked. "They appear to be members of the public, which they have every right to be." "They're a motorcycle gang," Victoria insisted. "We're a motorcycle club," Jacob corrected firmly but respectfully, standing. "Rolling Thunder MC, Your Honor. We're a veteran and community service organization. We're here to support Ms. Thompson, not to intimidate anyone." "Do you have identification?" Judge Morrison asked. Jacob approached the bench with his driver's license and a business card. "I'm Jacob Morrison, president of Rolling Thunder. We do charity work throughout Oregon and Washington. We're registered as a non-profit organization. Everything is legitimate and legal." Judge Morrison examined the documents, then looked at the assembled bikers. They looked back with calm, respectful expressions. "I see no reason to exclude them. They have as much right to attend a public trial as anyone else. But I warn you all, any disruption, and you will be removed and held in contempt." "Understood." "Yes, Your Honor," the bikers responded in unison, their voices deep and unified. Victoria looked furious, but had no legal recourse. She composed herself and began her closing argument, though her rhythm was clearly thrown off by the unexpected audience. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the facts of this case are simple. The defendant had motive. She's expressed anger toward property owners. She had opportunity. She was in the area. Evidence with her initials was found at the scene. The defense wants you to believe in some elaborate conspiracy to frame a homeless woman nobody cares about. But the truth is much simpler. She committed this crime, and now she must face the consequences. Nathan's closing was passionate. The prosecution wants you to ignore reasonable doubt. They want you to ignore Ms. Thompson's verified alibi. They want you to ignore that the evidence doesn't match her actual belongings. They want you to ignore 40 years of exemplary character. But most of all, they want you to ignore your own sense of justice. Margaret Thompson saved lives as a nurse. She helps others even now when she has nothing. She is not the person who vandalized that parking garage. Someone did commit that crime, but it wasn't her. I ask you to look at the evidence, all of it, and do what's right. Judge Morrison instructed the jury, and they filed out to deliberate. The wait began. During the recess, Marcus approached Nathan in the hallway. "Mr. Pierce, my name is Marcus Chen. I have information about Ms. Thompson that I think you and the court need to hear." Nathan looked at the young man with the scar on his temple, noting the sincerity in his eyes. "What kind of information?" 5 years ago, Margaret Thompson saved my life," Marcus said simply, and then he told the story. Every detail of that rainy afternoon, the accident, Maggie's skilled intervention, her refusal to accept recognition or gratitude. Nathan's eyes widened. "Why didn't she mention this? Why didn't she tell me?" "Because that's who she is," Marcus replied. "She doesn't do good things for recognition or reward. She does them because they're right. When I heard she was on trial, homeless and alone, I had to come. We all did. She shouldn't face this alone." Nathan immediately requested to speak with Judge Morrison in chambers. When the judge heard Marcus's story and saw the documentation Marcus had brought, hospital records from his accident, the accident report listing an unnamed Good Samaritan, everything, his stern expression softened slightly. "This is compelling character evidence," Judge Morrison acknowledged. "But the jury has already begun deliberations. Your Honor, if they come back with questions, or if there's any reason to recall them, this testimony could be vital," Nathan argued. "Mr. Chen is an upstanding citizen, a business owner, a veteran advocate. His testimony about Ms. Thompson's character is unimpeachable." "I'll take it under advisement," Judge Morrison said. Hours passed. Maggie sat in a witness waiting room, the Rolling Thunder members taking turns keeping her company. It was Rachel who sat with her when Marcus finally entered. "Ms. Thompson," Marcus said softly, "do you remember me?" Maggie looked up at the young man with the scar on his temple, and suddenly it clicked. The eyes, the shape of his face, though 5 years older and healthier. "Marcus, the accident on Highway 26? You remember?" Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. He sat down beside her. "I've been looking for you for 5 years. I wanted to thank you, to make sure you were okay. I never imagined I'd find you like this." Tears welled in Maggie's eyes. "You look well. You recovered fully?" "Because of you," Marcus said firmly. "The paramedics told me that if you hadn't stopped, if you hadn't known exactly what to do, I would have bled out before they arrived. You saved my life, and you didn't even tell me your full name." "I was just doing what anyone would do," Maggie said, the same words she had spoken 5 years ago. "But not everyone did do it," Marcus countered. 3 cars drove past me before you stopped. You were the one who cared enough to help a stranger, and now I'm here to help you." They talked for another hour, catching up on lost years. Marcus told her about his recovery, about starting his motorcycle repair business, about Rolling Thunder and their mission. Maggie told him about Robert, about the medical debt, about losing everything. "I'm so sorry you went through all that," Marcus said, his hand covering hers. "But you're not alone anymore. Rolling Thunder takes care of its own, and as far as we're concerned, you're family now." Late in the afternoon, the jury sent a note to the judge. They had reached a verdict. Everyone filed back into the courtroom. The tension was palpable. Maggie stood beside Nathan, her legs shaking. The Rolling Thunder members filled the gallery again, a wall of silent support behind her. The jury foreman, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, stood. "We, the jury, in the case of the State of Oregon versus Margaret Thompson, find the defendant not guilty." The courtroom erupted, not in chaos, but in a release of held breath, in quiet exclamations of relief and joy. Maggie collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face. Nathan hugged her, laughing with relief. The Rolling Thunder members remained respectfully quiet, but their smiles were wide and genuine. Judge Morrison banged his gavel. "Order, Ms. Thompson, you are free to go. The charges are dismissed with prejudice." He paused, looking at Maggie with an expression that was almost kind. "Ms. Thompson, I've presided over thousands of cases in my career. Very few defendants have impressed me as much as you have. I hope your circumstances improve. You deserve better than what life has dealt you." "Thank you, Your Honor," Maggie managed to say through her tears. As the courtroom cleared, Marcus approached Maggie. "Can we talk outside?" They walked out of the courthouse into the afternoon sun, the Rolling Thunder members forming a protective circle around them. The media had gotten wind of the story. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but the bikers kept them at a respectful distance. Marcus turned to Maggie. "I know we just found each other again, but I have a proposition for you. We've been looking for someone to manage our community outreach programs. Someone with medical knowledge, organizational skills, and most importantly, someone who understands what it's like to need help. The position comes with a salary, benefits, and a small apartment above the clubhouse. It's not fancy, but it's safe, and it's yours if you want it." Maggie stared at him in disbelief. "Marcus, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Rachel encouraged, stepping forward. "We need someone like you. And honestly, after 3 years on the streets, don't you deserve a break?" "I haven't worked in years," Maggie protested weakly. "I'm not sure I remember how." "You helped people in a detention center," Nathan interjected. He had followed them out. "The guards told me you were treating ailments, mediating conflicts, teaching people. You never stopped being a nurse, Ms. Thompson. You just stopped getting paid for it." Maggie looked around at the circle of faces, all these people who barely knew her but believed in her, supported her, offered her hope. For 3 years she had survived on determination and dignity alone. Now, finally, someone was offering her a chance not just to survive, but to live again. "Yes," she said, her voice growing stronger. "Yes, I accept. Thank you. Thank you all." The morning after the verdict, Maggie woke up in a real bed for the first time in 3 years. The small apartment above the Rolling Thunder clubhouse was modest. A studio with a kitchenette, a bathroom with a shower that had actual hot water pressure, and a window that looked out over the parking lot where motorcycles gleamed in neat rows. To Maggie, it felt like a palace. She stood at that window, a cup of coffee in her hands, real coffee that she had made herself in her own coffee maker, a welcoming gift from Rachel, and watched the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Behind her, the apartment was slowly becoming a home. The club members had donated furniture, kitchen supplies, clothes, and even a small television. But what meant the most to Maggie was the framed photograph on her bedside table, the only possession she had managed to keep through everything, showing her and Robert on their wedding day, young and full of hope. "I wish you could see this, Robert," she whispered to the photograph. "I wish you could meet these amazing people. I think you'd like them." A knock on her door interrupted her reverie. "Maggie!" You decent? Marcus called from the hallway. Come in, she replied, setting down her coffee. Marcus entered carrying a cardboard box. Morning, brought you some things for your first official day of work. Computer tablet for organizing events, a phone. Can't have our outreach coordinator unreachable, and these. Tuji, he pulled out a leather vest similar to what the club members wore, but instead of patches proclaiming membership, it bore a simple embroidered patch that read, Rolling Thunder Community Outreach. Marcus, this is too much, Maggie protested, though her hands reached for the vest reverently. It's not nearly enough, Marcus countered. Maggie, you gave me my life back 5 years ago. Everything I've built since then, my business, my place in this club, my relationships, none of it would exist if you hadn't stopped that day. Let us help you build your life back. You've earned it 100 times over. Maggie slipped on the vest. It fit perfectly. How did you know my size? Rachel has an eye for these things, Marcus said with a grin. Now come on. We've got a team meeting downstairs, and then I want to show you everything. Our food pantry program, the veteran support group, the weekly medical clinic we run out of the community center. Medical clinic? Maggie's interest was immediately piqued. Yeah, we partner with volunteer doctors and nurses to provide basic health care to people who can't afford it or don't have insurance, but we've been struggling with organization and follow-up. That's where you come in. You know healthcare, and you know what it's like to need help. You're the perfect person to run it. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Maggie threw herself into her new role with the energy of someone who had been given a second chance. She reorganized the medical clinic, establishing a triage system and creating patient files to ensure continuity of care. She coordinated the food pantry schedule, making sure volunteers were properly trained and that food was distributed fairly. She reached out to her old colleagues from the hospital, tentatively at first, and was overwhelmed by their enthusiastic response. Dr. Helen Patterson became a regular volunteer at the clinic. I should have done more when you first lost your house, she told Maggie one evening as they packed up medical supplies. I should have reached out, offered help. I let my discomfort with your situation prevent me from being a real friend. You testified for me, Maggie reminded her gently. You stood up when it mattered most. That's what I'll remember. The clinic quickly became the crown jewel of Rolling Thunder's community programs. Under Maggie's management, they saw over 100 patients a month. Homeless individuals, uninsured workers, elderly people on fixed incomes who couldn't afford their medications. Maggie treated them all with the same dignity and compassion she had shown throughout her career. Word spread quickly through the homeless community. Dennis Walker was one of the first to show up at the clinic, his persistent cough having worsened. Maggie examined him and immediately recognized the signs of pneumonia. Dennis, you need antibiotics and rest, she said firmly. Real rest, not sleeping under a bridge. Can't afford a hotel, Maggie, you know that, Dennis replied with a weak laugh. Then you'll stay here, Maggie decided. We have a recovery room set up for exactly this purpose. You're staying until you're well. Dennis's eyes filled with tears. You're something else, Maggie. You really are. Over the next month, Dennis recovered his health and found work through one of Rolling Thunder's job placement partners. Maggie attended his first day at his new job as a warehouse assistant, cheering him on like a proud mother. I wouldn't be here without you, Dennis told her, hugging her tight. You never gave up on me, even when I'd given up on myself. Stories like Dennis's became common. Amanda Foster came to the clinic seeking help for her depression and, through Maggie's gentle encouragement and connection to mental health resources, finally got back on her medication. Within 2 months, she had moved into subsidized housing and was volunteering at the clinic herself, using her paralegal background to help patients navigate insurance and benefits applications. Carlos Mendoza, a 55-year-old veteran who had been homeless for 8 years, came in with an infected wound on his foot that could have resulted in amputation if left untreated. Maggie cleaned and dressed the wound, arranged for him to see a specialist, and personally drove him to every follow-up appointment. Carlos's foot healed, and through Rolling Thunder's veteran support network, he connected with VA benefits he didn't know he qualified for. But not everything was success stories and heartwarming moments. One cold November evening, Maggie was locking up the clinic when she saw a familiar figure leaning against a car in the parking lot. Kyle Brennan, the security guard who had been so eager to blame her for the vandalism, stood with his arms crossed, a sneer on his face. "Well, well," Kyle called out. "Look who's playing nurse again. Guess you fooled everyone, huh?" Maggie's first instinct was fear, a flashback to being accused and arrested. But then she straightened her shoulders and walked toward him with her head held high. "Kyle, what can I do for you?" "You can admit you got lucky," Kyle spat. "That jury was stupid. I know you did it. You and your homeless friends probably planned it together." "I didn't do it, Kyle," Maggie said calmly. "And you know what? I feel sorry for you. You're so determined to see the worst in people that you can't recognize the truth when it's right in front of you." "Feel sorry for me?" Kyle laughed harshly. "I'm not the one who was living in the gutter." "No, you're just the one living with anger and prejudice," Maggie replied. "That's its own kind of poverty. If you ever want help with that, our clinic is open every Tuesday and Thursday evening. We even offer counseling services now." She walked away, leaving Kyle speechless. Marcus, who'd been watching from the clubhouse door, approached her with admiration in his eyes. "That took courage," he said. "It took forgiveness," Maggie corrected, "and I'm still working on it. But I refuse to let bitterness poison this second chance I've been given." As winter settled over Portland, Rolling Thunder's reputation grew. Local news stations picked up the story of the homeless woman who was saved by bikers and was now saving others. Donations poured in. More volunteers signed up. The city council even approached Maggie about consulting on homeless services policy. "They want my input," Maggie told Marcus one evening, laughing in disbelief. "The same system that nearly destroyed me now wants my advice." "Then give it to them," Marcus encouraged. "Tell them what it's really like. Make them understand that people living on the streets aren't statistics or problems to be solved. They're human beings who deserve dignity and compassion." Maggie did exactly that. She testified before the city council about the inadequacy of shelter services, the lack of mental health resources, the way small fines and citations could trap people in cycles of poverty. She spoke with the authority of experience and the compassion of someone who had lived it. "When I was on the streets," she told the council members, looking each of them in the eye, "I wasn't less intelligent, less capable, or less deserving of respect. I was simply someone who had experienced catastrophic bad luck. Every single person experiencing homelessness has a story, has skills, has value. The question isn't why they're on the streets. The question is why, as a society, we're okay with letting them stay there." Her testimony went viral online. Advocacy groups shared it. It was quoted in articles about homelessness policy. And slowly, incrementally, things began to change in Portland. More funding was allocated to shelter services. The city opened a new medical clinic specifically for homeless populations. Job training programs expanded. 6 months after her trial, Maggie sat in her apartment surrounded by the people who had become her family. Rolling Thunder was celebrating the anniversary of her joining them with a potluck dinner. The clubhouse was filled with laughter, the smell of grilled food, and the warm buzz of conversation. Rachel raised a glass for a toast. "To Maggie, who taught us that helping others isn't about charity, it's about recognizing our shared humanity. You've transformed this club and this community. We're better because you're part of us." "Hear, hear!" The crowd cheered, glasses clinking. Maggie stood, her own glass in hand, emotion thick in her throat. "I'm the one who should be thanking you." A year ago, I was sleeping on the streets, feeding birds in the square, just trying to survive one day at a time. I'd lost everything, my home, my career, my sense of purpose. I was invisible to most people. But then Marcus remembered. You all showed up. You stood by a stranger because it was the right thing to do. You gave me back not just a roof over my head, but a reason to wake up every morning. You gave me back my life. She paused, looking around at the faces that had become so dear to her. Marcus with his kind eyes and eternal gratitude, Rachel with her fierce protectiveness, Jacob with his steady leadership, Tommy with his youthful enthusiasm, and so many others. Robert, my husband, used to say that we're all just walking each other home, Maggie continued. He meant that life is hard, and we all need help sometimes, and the best thing we can do is be there for each other along the way. You all walked me home when I was lost, and now I get to help others find their way. That's not just a job, that's a gift. So thank you. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for believing in me when I'd almost stopped believing in myself. Thank you for being my family. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Marcus stood and hugged her tight, and soon she was surrounded by a group embrace, dozens of arms wrapping around her in a physical manifestation of belonging. Later that evening, as the party wound down, Maggie and Marcus stood outside, watching the stars emerge in the clear night sky. You ever think about that day on the highway? Marcus asked. About how one small decision, your decision to stop, changed both our lives. I think about it all the time, Maggie admitted. I think about how interconnected we all are, how one act of kindness can ripple outward in ways we never imagined. I stopped to help you because it was right. I never expected anything in return, but the universe has a way of bringing things full circle. My mother used to say that kindness is never wasted, Marcus said. Even when it seems like it disappears into the void, it's out there, working in ways we can't see. You proved that. We both did, Maggie corrected. You didn't have to search for me. You didn't have to offer me a job or a place to live. You chose to pay forward the help you received. That's what makes all the difference. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Marcus spoke again. We're expanding, you know. Rolling Thunder chapters in Seattle and Sacramento want to start their own community outreach programs modeled on ours. They want you to train their coordinators, help them set up medical clinics and food pantries. Me? Maggie asked in surprise. You've built something special here, Maggie. Other people want to replicate it. You could impact thousands of lives. Maggie thought about it, about taking her experience, her pain, her survival, and transforming it into something that could help people across multiple cities. It was overwhelming and exciting in equal measure. I'll do it, she decided, but only if we do it right. No cutting corners. Every person who comes through those doors gets treated with dignity and respect. Deal? Deal, Marcus agreed, extending his hand. They shook on it, two people whose lives had intersected in a moment of crisis and had created something beautiful from that connection. As Maggie finally returned to her apartment that night, exhausted but content, she stood once more at her window, looking out over the parking lot. Tomorrow, she would wake up and go to work. She would help people who were struggling, who felt invisible, who had lost hope. She would be a living reminder that circumstances don't define worth, that everyone deserves a second chance, that kindness is never wasted. She picked up the photograph of Robert and smiled. We're walking each other home, love, she whispered. Just like you said. And you know what? The journey is pretty beautiful. Outside, a motorcycle engine roared to life, then another, the sound of rolling thunder, the sound of community, the sound of home. Maggie closed her eyes and listened, grateful for every single moment that had led her to this place, even the painful ones. Because sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest dawns. Sometimes being broken is what makes you stronger. And sometimes, when you save someone's life without asking for anything in return, the universe finds a way to save yours right back. Maggie Thompson was home at last.